third is Suarez. Goodell comes running in. He's under it, makes the catch. Here's the throw to the plate. It's in the air. He is out! Cameron Rick hangs on! Oh, man, what a play! Deep to right field. Way up there and way out! Second
And welcome back to the Student Money Podcast. We have a lot to talk about, but like none of it has to do with the signing. So kind of an interesting week because Sunday it came out through Bob Nightingale that a bunch of rival executives believe the Phillies could be a sleeper for Montgomery and Cody Bellinger. And that got people excited. And then Wednesday morning, I guess hear this on Thursday morning. Wednesday morning, WIP had Dave Dombrowski on, and I don't know. Some people said like I didn't get a lot out of it. I actually thought I got a decent amount out of it. I heard the whole thing. I heard it twice actually because I heard it live and then I heard it a little later in the day when WIP replayed it. But I guess to start off is that the Phillies maybe will do something if the opportunity presents itself, but Dombrowski kind of made it sound like they want to trust Sanchez in the rotation. They want to trust Rojas in the lineup. I trust him in the outfield. My thing is trusting him in the lineup. And they want to trust Kerkering in the bullpen. So those three guys are kind of slated to play pretty prominent roles with this team because outside of adding, or I guess re-adding Aaron Nola at the beginning of the offseason, they have not added someone who would be considered an automatic lock for the 26-man roster.
Yeah, it's been like weird, and I think, a lot of it comes down to the man kind of running the show with Scott Boras being the agent of like a lot of the marquee guys left. That Bob Nightingale report, the more you see it at first and everyone kind of gets excited, like, oh, maybe they're kind of just waiting to see what offers for those two, Bellinger and Montgomery, look like. But then, Boras has worked so closely with the Phillies the last few years and Dave Dombrowski in general over the last decade plus. So I think at this point it's kind of Scott Boras being like, I have a really good relationship with the Phillies. My first, obviously, A-Rod was a big deal with Boras, but Harper was kind of, the trendsetter for these gigantic contracts. So Boras kind of has that rapport with the Phillies. So now he's kind of just, we've seen it the last few years too, just using them as leverage or throwing them in the sweepstakes for his clients to just drive up offers. And another thing with Boras, especially, I don't know what Montgomery's past contract looked like. We've talked about it before. He's been like good throughout his career, never really great. So coming off of a big postseason that he had, and Bellinger coming off of a prove it deal, and even Blake Snell coming off of another Cy Young award. We saw some reports earlier in the offseason that the market's not exactly what Snell thought it was, so he might take like a 2-year deal with high AAV. Scott Boras isn't going to let his clients do that. He's known for getting them more than what they're normally worth, driving up the market as much as possible to get the max out of those contracts. So I don't really see us kind of getting in that deal with having the contracts on the books that we already do, and they've talked about really wanting to get a Wheeler extension done. So I definitely agree with them that should be the priority over, adding Montgomery as a number 3. While it would be nice, I don't think it's necessarily worth the money that Boras would make it cost. Yeah,
and he did mention a Wheeler extension is something they want to get done. And I know Jack Fritz mentioned this today, but if they do it before spring training, like his new contract would count towards the tax this year. not next year. Like it would somehow kick in a year early. I'm not exactly sure how
They're
that works.
definitely gonna wait till after.
Yeah. So like Matt Gelb wrote about this and stuff. So I'd go check that out for a proper explanation. But yeah, like chances are this is going to get done. They just have to wait from a financial standpoint. So the Wheeler thing, I get. I'm not going to totally rule them out though, because the Phillies have shown in the past they'll play the long game. They played it with Arrieta, they played it with Harper, but the difference is with Harper, I think they were probably going to give him whatever he wanted anyway. It was just a matter of waiting for him to pick. I think
that wasn't so much like setting the market. That was just Harper figuring everything out.
Yeah, I put this one in a different category than Arrieta and Castellanos, which was going to be my next example. But I still think though they are, when the opportunity presents itself, they do pounce. And I cannot, I don't know, like the whole Taijuan Walker thing doesn't sit well with me. They brought that up too, like, are you guys good with Taijuan Walker after he's like liking tweets about not playing and stuff in the playoffs? And I mean, Dombrowski said yes, but you clearly don't trust him in the playoffs, even though you gave him $18 million a year. So you can, after what we saw this year, you can trust Montgomery in the playoffs. So if that's, a possibility, I think if it gets to the point where he is forced to take, a 1-year deal with an option or a 2-year deal or something like that, like then I think we could see them really get involved there. But other than that, I don't know. And the other thing is, where would these guys go? Like, there's not like a lot of the teams that are in contention have filled out rosters. We know a bunch of teams do not spend. Like you could take out the A's, the Tigers, the Pirates,
even the Reds.
Yeah, did I say the Reds?
You said A's, Tigers, Pirates.
Yeah, Reds. I meant to say Reds too. Marlins. Like these teams aren't going to be involved.
Yeah,
and I know like
honestly, too,
money counts, but
the reports too, like the Red Sox, they're not like they're showing that they're trying to cut based on articles. So like that's I mean that's a sixth of the league right there. And then I think
those bally sports teams too are all broke.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest obstacles is Montgomery. Would you have to give up a draft pick?
No, because he got traded in the middle of the season last year.
Okay, but I think one of the things it's tough with where we are up against the tax, because I think just kind of expecting them to get, even if it's a shorter term contract, your AAV is going to be higher, so that would probably push us over the third tax threshold. So then you're losing a draft pick, assuming that we wouldn't be in, a lottery position where I don't like the Mets was finished top 7 in the lottery last year and keep it, if not drop 10 spots. So there's that penalty. And then it was kind of like the whole thing why the Dodgers were quiet last offseason, because they had to reset their tax threshold. So there's just a lot of moving parts that come with jumping over that third tax. So I think, like you said, if the opportunity's there and they could do it on a deal that they're comfortable with, I mean, I'm not going to complain if they jump the third tax. Like if they draft pick drops 10 spots, then so what? I think the player development staff with Brian Barber and Preston Mattingly have kind of shown that they have the ability to develop. So I definitely trust them more than the last group. But I think just resetting the tax, as if the Schwarbers and the Castellanos come off the books, when you'll have even more flexibility down the road, and with the free agent class next year, you don't really want to put yourself in the position to have to take an off season off to reset that.
Yeah, and that's kind of what, like last time we talked about how maybe they're waiting and sitting until the deadline where they can acquire a rental and then just let that person walk after the year.
They did scout Roki this week.
Yeah, I did. I did see that. But one of those big rentals actually came off the board this past week with Corbin Burns getting traded to the Orioles. So that's where, when that happened, I kind of thought that maybe that's where the philosophy change might come in, and they might say, oh, like maybe we should just go get Montgomery right now because maybe the deadline's not going to look like what we thought it was going to. So that's the one thing I keep in the back of my mind, that maybe it'll change their minds. But I think like Bieber would also have to come off the board before the season for them to really panic then.
Yeah, and I think I have no factual basis of this, but I assume the price is very high. The Baltimore trade didn't look like much on paper, but I know Matt Winkelman tweeted it, and he's pretty in touch with our farm system. He does a lot of tweets regarding minor leaguers and projections and stuff like that. I think he's really knowledgeable with the farm system. And he said that the equivalent to that trade for us would have probably been like Abel, Aiden Miller, just to kind of get that value of DL Hall, a 25-year-old major league shortstop who has really good minor league numbers, and the 34 overall pick. So like that would have been a haul for us. And then there was that thing from, I don't even know what it was. If it was some sort of Braves, either, they were interviewing Alex Anthopoulos for something, and the kids were standing behind him with their phones out against the glass, and they were like, they had on Snapchat or whatever, like trade for Dylan Cease. And he like yelled through the glass at them, like, I tried to, it was too expensive. So the starting pitching market is probably through the roof right now. And not that it's going to go down at deadline time, but you can kind of, see where guys are at, and maybe your farm system proves to be deeper than we thought. A year or two ago, Ben Brown was not really much of a thought. And then by the middle of the season, his strikeout numbers were through the roof, and you're trading him for one of the better, if not the best reliever available at the time on the market. So, things can change from now until the end of July, obviously. So I don't mind, waiting out that market and seeing what teams are good, what teams are struggling a little bit, and seeing what pitchers become more available.
Yeah. Speaking of pitchers, he was asked about Yamamoto, and he did say the Phillies were involved, and he said you'd be surprised by the number that we offered or whatever, which leads me to believe they might have gone above the Dodgers offer, because he kind of finished it with like, he was always a Dodgers fan. It's just where he wanted to go. There was nothing we could do. I think they had to be in like the 350, 360 range, if that's what he was saying. I think they probably had the largest money offer out there for him.
Yeah, and I keep,
and I think they needed to like have a chance.
Yeah, for sure. I think the fact that they were in that sweepstakes as long as they were, obviously they've, stressed since Dombrowski got here, the emphasis on, growing their footprint in the Asian areas of baseball, focusing on getting that Japanese footprint and scouting more in depthly there. But yeah, they definitely had to offer a lot of money to stay in that sweepstakes as long as they did. And I think that I keep bringing it up on the last few shows, but like getting the idea of Roki and what that offer is going to look like, because if Yamamoto got 300 and whatever from the Dodgers and we offered him more than that, how old is he? 25?
Yeah, 25.
Roki's what, 20? He's going to be 21 next year.
Yeah, I'd have to look to make sure, but yeah.
Just as good as Yamamoto stuff-wise, if not better. So, like, that's going to be, a 400.
Yeah, like 12 for 400. Yeah, something like that.
If not more. So, like, the fact that they're showing that willingness, to extend that type of offer, it definitely makes me feel good about where, even though this offseason's been slow and they haven't really made the moves that we've all kind of wanted with some of the bigger names out there, I think they're definitely being smart about how they're approaching it. And with the free agent class next year, it's not like they're punting on this season by not signing, the Yamamotos or anything, but they've showed the willingness to attempt to. So I think it's a good sign for where Middleton and Dombrowski are at.
Yeah, and speaking of attempts, Dombrowski did mention that they were heavily interested with two relievers, and one wanted to go to the West Coast close to home, and one wanted to be a starter. So the two guys that fit the starter bill are Hicks, who signed with the Giants, and Jacob Junis, who signed with the Brewers. I don't know where I should have looked up where these guys are from, but Robert Stevenson signed with the Angels. So either him or Hicks was the guy that wanted to go back west, and either Hicks or Junis was the guy who wanted to be a starter. I'm led to believe Junis was the guy who thought he was a starter, because Hicks, was not a starter for 6-7 years or whatever it was, whereas Junis was kind of that like swing man where he started sometimes and then was out of the bullpen others. So I think maybe I feel more likely like he was someone that was like, yeah, I want to try and be a starter full time. Whereas Hicks, I just think the Giants are out of their mind with that one. But
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think the report was out when, right when Hicks signed that the Phillies were in on him. So I side with that one more, like the starter being more Hicks. And just looking at it, I don't know too much about Jacob Junis and what his kind of pitch arsenal looks like, but like since Dombrowski's gotten here, it's been pretty consistent with what they've tried to do with the bullpen. His first move was getting Alvarado. They've kind of just completely flipped how they went about crafting the bullpen. With Klentak, it was kind of command guys, and then once Dombrowski got here, everyone's just been, Alvarado 100, Gregory Soto 100. So I tend to lean more towards them wanting Hicks and the Giants just offering him a ludicrous offer. And Robert Stevenson's from California.
Okay, so that was him, yeah.
Yeah, so they were definitely in on him. Yeah, I mean, as much as you'd like to get guys like that, you can't do it when the Giants are overpaying Hicks and offering him, something that's not even realistic on our team. But I just think in general, like Jordan Hicks is not a starting pitcher. And I mean, Robert Stevenson, if he wanted to go home that bad, you're not going to, pry him away from that unless you probably double what the Angels offered him, which just doesn't make sense and doesn't give you any flexibility to do anything else now or come deadline time.
Yeah, and I don't know if he's just saving his ass by using those as the excuses or not, but he didn't say like we got outbid or outpriced. Now, I don't know if he'd say that, but to me, those guys got significant deals. Like Hicks got 4 for $44, and what Stevenson got like 13 a year or something like that, 12, 13. So like maybe they were offering that, which means, there is something out there. I'd still like another bat. I hate the Pache Cave bench. Like I do. It's so bad. It's, I look at like those 08, 09 teams. They had excellent bench players like Bruntlett, Dobbs, like Mayberry was a little later, I think, but like Ben Francisco, like they had legit dudes on the bench that you were comfortable seeing start for a week or so if needed. I can't do the Jake Cave thing again. And maybe it's because he was the last out of the season and I'm annoyed. But like I don't know, there's guys out there. I know like someone like Tommy Pham probably wants to start all the time. So like he's out, but you have like an aging Duvall. Can you get him? Like even like Kevin Kiermaier's out there. Like, but he's not a great hitter either. So I don't know. But he's like past being an everyday player. So like I don't know if like
I mean Kiermaier is a good option, I think, just because the plan, and Dombrowski kind of said it today on the radio that Rojas is the likely starter for center field. He said it's not guaranteed, but it's likely, and whether that's because they haven't brought anybody in, probably. But like if you're so intent on we don't need the bat to be incredible in center field, just go play elite defense. Well, then get the Kevin Kiermaier that also plays elite defense, and you could platoon the lefty and righty bat in center field like that.
Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense if that's their route.
That
the whole Adam Duvall thing was weird. There was like that report like a few weeks ago, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, that it was the Red Sox, Angels. It might have just been those two.
I think it was. Yeah,
you like closing or like deal probably coming soon, like closing in on those two, and then it just like nobody said anything. Like nobody even said that something fell through. It just kind of disappeared. So he's still out there. Whit Merrifield's still out there. I feel
Yeah.
like I say this every podcast. It kind of gives you some flexibility to also play the infield if Stott needs a day off. He started as a second baseman.
You only get 4 men benches now, so a guy that could play 6 different positions is great.
He was, I believe, I know Bichette had a really good year last year, but I want to say that Merrifield was the only Silver Slugger on that Toronto team.
I think he was the only All-Star.
Okay. He was the only something on that Toronto team.
Yeah, I don't know if it was All-Star or Silver Slugger. It was one of the two, yeah.
Yeah, he's not available anymore, this other guy, but, screw Jock Peterson with the whole It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia thing and then signing with the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, the team we absolutely hate now, yeah.
Yeah, but, I don't know. I'd be good with – I mean, I'd love Merrifield. Obviously, he was in my perfect offseason plan, but I'm kind of back on – I know I said it's 2 years too late, but I'm kind of back on the Duvall train just because – at this point, just sign somebody to help the outfield or a bench bat. And I think Kiermaier makes a lot of sense if you're kind of trying to prioritize the defense, but then also giving Rojas a veteran to platoon with them out there from the left side makes it even better.
Yeah, and as we're recording this, Simon Muzziotti just got DFA'd, so there's even less outfield. Yeah, when they picked up one of those other crappy.
Oh relievers. Yeah, the Red Sox guy they claimed off waivers today.
Yeah, they've been claiming like 8 shitty relievers all week. I don't know what's going on, but they want guys with options apparently because a lot of those guys in that bullpen do not have options left. But yeah, so he's gone unless he clears waivers, which is possible. But yeah, like there really is no plan B if Rojas doesn't hit inside right now. And obviously you can go get someone at the deadline maybe, but I don't know, kind of having someone in case we're in the middle of May and he's hitting like 150, like dragging that out until the end of July is not ideal.
No.
If you can fix it in May, I'd fix it in May because we know how this team is when it starts slow. So any help you can get early is good with me. So I just feel like I'd rather sign the plan B for the outfield than wait to the deadline. And if you want to wait to the deadline to trade for the plan B pitching, I think I could live with that just because Walker and Sanchez are like really good regular season players, I guess, so to say. Playoffs different story, but I think you can get there with them. I don't know, if Rojas is bad, I don't think you can get to July through that. So
I mean, the defense is obviously, he had over 2 wins above replacement in maybe 50 some games, if that. So the upside's definitely there, but you definitely don't want it to linger. They said he's been doing, a lot of work. It seemed like from, social media posts and stuff, he kind of right after the season ended, he's been in the cages with, a full off season of a Kevin Long hitting program since December. So that's definitely positive. He's not, I don't think he was kind of happy with how the postseason went. So I know it's good to see, but take everything with from the off season with a grain of salt. And I guess even spring training almost, we'll kind of see where we're at with him, reevaluate everything, maybe April, end of April, just to kind of see what, that first month looks like with his coming off his first real major league offseason and kind of go from there. But yeah, I agree. I think they should definitely have plan B in-house, ideally before the season starts.
Yeah. So the last thing I want to talk about from the Dombrowski thing before we kind of get to the social media viral things, they talked about the leadoff hitter, and Dombrowski was kind of like, I have my opinion or whatever, and I talked to Dave or I talked to Rob about it, but at the end of the day, it's his call. Obviously, that makes it sound like he's not a Schwarber fan there, because because they asked him who do you want to lead off? I think if he wanted Schwarber, he'd come out and say, I love what Kyle does up there, blah blah blah. So I Turner, Stott are the other options. I'm gonna be honest with you, the leadoff thing does not bother me as much as who's batting cleanup, because we saw at the end of that NLCS, the Diamondbacks just wanted nothing to do with Harper, and they just went right after Bowman outside of that solo home run in Game 7, which he was leading off the inning, so they weren't pitching. They were kind of wasn't what they would normally do with runners on, I guess is what I'm trying to say. They, he hits the home run, but other than that, like, it was bad. So I'm more worried about that than who's leading off.
Yeah, and you kind of look at his numbers, Schwarber's numbers, and they're not they're definitely different in a good way in the leadoff spot compared to everywhere else in the lineup. But, I think if you're just kind of looking at a top 3 lineup structure, I'd love for it to go Stott, Turner, Harper. Lefty, righty, lefty. Stott really good, gets on base, and both guys in front of Harper can run. But then you kind of look at what a potential Schwarber, Castellanos, Bohm, JT area behind Harper would look like, and it's a lot of strikeouts. And then if it's Schwarber hitting cleanup, you're going lefty with, Schwarber's not necessarily a patient hitter. He walked a bunch that first year, it seemed, but the strikeouts definitely, outweigh that. So even if, you get a situation where one of the first 2 guys get on and Harper hits a single somewhere and you have first and third with 1 out on the corners, it's not like Schwarber, obviously, if he puts the ball in play, chances are it's in the air somewhere, but the strikeouts definitely outweigh, a sac fly scenario. So I don't know. I feel like Schwarber, as weird as it is to say, kind of has to be in the leadoff spot just because of the way the rest of the lineup would kind of configure after it. But I think for me, in an ideal world, it would go Stott, Turner, Harper, Castellanos, I guess, and then Schwarber just looks really weird in, the 5 spot. But just for the sake of not letting them kind of the other team stack lefties against Harper and Schwarber, I'd probably just break them up somewhere.
Yeah, and Turner, Stott, 1-2, whichever way you want to put it, would be really nice because those are 2 of the best base runners in the NL. Like, do they get thrown out like a combined 3 times last year? Because Turner didn't get caught, right? And Stott was 30 of 33 or something. Like, you're talking about 2 very efficient base runners. So having them at the top for Harper would be something. But like you said, there really is no great place for Schwarber's skill set outside of leadoff. One more note on Schwarber. Dombrowski did mention that a big reason why they wanted to go with Rojas, Marsh as center field, left field instead of bring back Reese, which I don't know how this is related because you would have put Harper back in the outfield, but whatever, was that they wanted to get Schwarber out of the field because of his knees. So if he's been banged up the last 2 years and now we get to see him without playing the field at all, this is a guy that hit 46 and 45 home runs the last 2 years. If he stays healthy, he could go for 50 plus if he was dealing with knee injuries the past couple seasons.
Yeah, I guess the thing with Reese was, the Schwarber's first year, they had Reese at first, obviously. But with the talk, I guess they had in the offseason with Harper, they said that whatever position they picked, that'd be kind of final and they wouldn't have him, bounce around. So he kind of just focused. So I guess them deciding on first base, they fully want to commit to that. And if they brought Reese back, it'd be in, the DH capacity. So Schwarber would have to play the outfield, which, I think Marsh isn't as strong in center field, but you did, make it to the World Series with Schwarber in left field. So it's definitely doable, but right. I don't hate them siding with the defensive aspect and going with Rojas and Marsh or whatever. Hopefully bench bat they bring in Yeah, I think Schwarber, healthy or not, I kind of the last 2 years have taught me to not expect anything until Memorial Day. I
Mm-hmm.
think the last 2 years, my dad and I have talked about there being like a 5% chance that he gets to, hit 200 in terms of batting average because around Memorial Day, his batting average is normally at like 180. And somehow he gets it to, finish at like I guess it was around 220 his first year. And I don't know what it finished at last year, but June happens somehow every year. So you said last year you wouldn't get mad about baseball until Memorial Day. I won't get mad about Schwarber until Memorial Day just because that's what he's shown us the last 2 years. I think him being healthy would definitely be interesting to see if that changes anything.
Mm-hmm.
He has, 2 more years this year and
Yeah.
next year on his contract. So his only high year in terms of, batting average, it's kind of a dead stat, but he hit 260 in his contract year. So it'll be interesting to see if that trend keeps up next year. But yeah, healthy Schwarber will be fun for everybody.
Yeah, would be nice. Maybe it'll get him off to a quicker start, like you said. All right, let's get into some fun stuff. The first one, those Pacoda or whatever they're called projections came out. They have the Phillies at 85 and 77. This is a team that won 90 games last year, and as I think I've mentioned on every episode this offseason, Bryce Harper was pretty much a non-factor offensively until July. Trey Turner was a non-factor defensively and offensively until August. Aaron Nola had the worst year of his career, and we get even year Nola this year, where his career ERA is like a run less than odd years. You get a healthy Ranger Suarez. You get an out of the outfield Schwarber to start. I just don't see how. And look, we've sat here and bitched about the fact they didn't add anyone, but I just don't see how you can project this team with 5 less than last year. It just doesn't add up for me.
Yeah, I mean, if you look across some of the books, I think FanDuel has them at 89.5, so right around 90.
Yeah.
I want to say their line on DraftKings might have opened up at 90.5 or 91.5. So like the 85, it seems like those projections to me are always just so low. Not so low, but they're definitely a low ball estimate. My friend sent me one the other day that they were like tied with the Mets in the division. So I don't know. Like the Mets are not good, but like if the Phillies win 85 games this year and that's it, something went wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like you mentioned, all of those factors from last year, Turner being non-existent until August, Harper not playing until late May and not hitting more than 3 home runs until like the middle of July or end of July. Like all of those factors, Castellanos going like non-existent for some points of time. Like, yes, you had some overperformers, like Craig Kimbrell being an all-star definitely helped and kind of being perfect essentially in the first half of the season. And Castellanos' scorching hot start to the season, like there were definitely factors that helped you, but they were still, 6 or 7 games under 500 by the end of May. So like, This is a team that should not be that again. They seem to shown tendencies to start off very slow for some reason, but I don't think they'll do that this year. I think we talked about it on one of the last few episodes. Like the core is comfortable, the roster is comfortable. There's that continuity from last year for 90%, 95% of the team. And they keep talking about how the last 2 years haven't really ended how they wanted them to. So if they win 85 games, something went horribly wrong.
Yeah, I agree with that. So today, which will be yesterday when this comes out, was the 5-year anniversary of the JT Realmuto trade. The Phillies get JT Realmuto. The Marlins get Jorge Alfaro, Sixto Sanchez, Will Stewart. 5 years later, Jorge Alfaro is not a Marlin. I don't think Will Stewart has made it above AA. Sixto Sanchez has not pitched like competitively since 2020. And JT Realmuto has amassed a 19.8 WAR with the Phillies. Those three guys combined have 2.6, and that includes the COVID year, which honestly, like, that was JT's, I think, maybe best offensive season here. I think he had like 13 home runs in 50 something games. So,
Yeah.
like, his WAR would have been a lot higher had that been a full season. So, shout out Matt Klentak, because that is one of the most lopsided trades in like present day MLB history. So good for you there, bro.
Yeah, and it was like it was so weird at the time because I mean not crazy weird because obviously Rio Muto was very good at the time, but I don't think we all kind of knew what he was. You know, he came up in the minors as a shortstop, and he kind of progressed along the way to become the Marlins tournament to a catcher in the minor leagues, and he had a really good start to his career. But I don't think we really envisioned what we were getting at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I know me personally, I give JT a really hard time about all this stuff. And I think, part of that was me trying to wrap my head around how he was being paid with his extension, a little bit more right around the same as Harper was.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's just, positional value and him kind of being the first catcher to sign big money and setting precedent for the other catchers. And I know that meant a lot to him trying to set that market. But I think a lot of the criticism comes from him and Harper being right around the same when obviously, corner outfielder, corner infielder now, offensive production compared to a catcher who's in late 20, now early 30s. It's definitely different expectations. So just trying to manage that. But yeah, shout out Klentak and shout out JT for being like the best catcher for the last half decade since we had him.
Yeah. All right. This is one that it's not really been in the news, but it's something that I looked up on my own because I was looking at kind of past Phillies drafts, and in a lot of the instances, I don't blame them for the guy they took because the guys taken behind them haven't necessarily been that good.
Mm-hmm.
With the exception of the Bryson Stott draft, I think, but like I'm happy with that pick, so I don't worry about that one. But the 2016 Mickey Moniak draft, where he was first overall, I went through this, and let me tell you something. The first round of this draft sucks. Outside of Josh Lowe, however he says his name, for the Rays, who was 13th. Will Benson was 14th to the Indians at the time. And Gavin Lux was 20 to the Dodgers. But some of the other notable picks there. The 32nd pick was Will Smith to the Dodgers. Dylan Carlson went the pick after him to the Cardinals. Some of the some second rounders: Brian Reynolds, Pete Alonso, Bo Bichette. Third rounder Sean Murphy. Third rounder Austin Hayes. Third rounder Zach Gallen, and 2 fourth rounders Corbin Burns and Shane Bieber. So out of that group of people I just named, who would have been the one that you would have taken over Mickey Moniak now that you know what you know?
Now that I know, so like
now that you know what you know, yes.
If the draft was today, I would probably take Corbin Burns.
Okay, yeah, that's probably where I was. Boba kind of excited me, but
yeah, I remember like that was right around the time when I like actually started, paying attention to college baseball and like understanding what the draft process was like, and kind of like looking at who I wanted, the Phillies to get. And I think part of that was because growing up, like I wasn't used to the Phillies being bad, so they never picked high in the draft. But first overall pick, big deal. Who do I want them to get? And I was like all in on. It's like right around the time of the College World Series, and like I desperately wanted them to get Corey Ray, that outfielder from Louisville.
I was high on him too. Yeah.
Obviously, he just didn't really amount to anything. But I think if the draft was today, I'd probably go with Corbin Burns. Honestly, I'm shocked that Shane Bieber was in that draft class, because to me it just seems like he's like in his mid-30s.
Yeah, I was surprised with some of those guys from that draft too. I thought they were way older. But I think they were maybe drafted out of college, so that might be why.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm gonna go with Zach Gallen because it means the Phillies don't lose the NLCS last year.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think that. Well, also if they had Corbin Burns, that probably doesn't matter because I don't have to watch 2 innings of Christopher Sanchez, then an inning of Hoffman, then an inning of this, then Kerkering walked the bases loaded, and Kimbrel give up a bomb. So I mean, either way.
And if they had Corbin Burns, at least when Zach Wheeler's Cy Young got snubbed and we didn't get to see Harper and Wheeler win MVP and Cy Young in the same season, it still would have been one of Harper's teammates.
Yeah, I don't know how I would have stomached them having the Cy Young and the MVP, and kind of came close to the playoffs, but not.
If they also had the Cy Young, though, that probably wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, that's true, I guess. All right, last thing here. Apparently, and I say apparently, the Phillies City Connect jersey has been leaked on eBay, which I don't know how the hell that would have happened. I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't hate the jersey. I think the lettering looks stupid. I think they should go with like just the normal like Phillies text. Like it's very like, I don't know. I think it fits well. Like you go around like the city of Philadelphia, like people's signages, like they use the Phillies, I don't know, what do you call it? Writing graph, like whatever it is.
Yeah.
Script, I guess. Yeah. Script. I don't know anything about this jersey. Obviously it came out that the jersey was going to look like the city flag. I'm going to assume the hat is probably like a multi-tone blue and the P is yellow. If I had a guess, I mean, and I don't know what the pants are going to look like, but I can see the pants being white with like yellow trim, maybe.
I can see the pants being navy too, man.
What
they did with the Rockies uniforms, and the Rockies are just like, nah, we're gonna wear different pants. But they love making these City Connect uniforms the same color from top to bottom.
Yeah. So if this is it, what kind of grade are you putting on this out of 10? I like the jersey itself, I give like a 7 out of 10, but the way that lettering looks, it looks so dumb. Like the lettering to me is like a 3 out of 10, so it brings it down to like maybe like a 5 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, I mean, I won't be getting one.
No, I don't think I'll be wearing one.
Yeah, I don't know what I get it. It's the city edition, so the now retired Washington one was the cherry blossom and stuff like that. So they're trying to pay homage to the city, but I don't know what the city flag angle was. Like I feel like it's not the most popular thing, like as far as being well known with the city flag and being what it is. And another thing, we saw the Eagles do it in the past and it didn't really work. So I don't know, why they thought, oh, let's try it again, but in baseball. It's definitely grown on me since the first time I saw it. And I don't know if that's because it's actually not as bad as I thought it was, or if I'm just trying to convince myself. But yeah, I don't love the patch on the sleeve, and I think the font is awful. The yellow to me, it almost looks like a little neon, and the lettering almost just makes me think they were trying to go for like some sort of like, it just seems like something that would go with like a voltage design. So I feel like it was kind of like playing off the yellow neon type thing, and the font's just really bad.
Yeah, it is bad.
I think, the colors aren't awful, but I'm not a fan of the city flag route that they went, and the font definitely kills it for me.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's Philly. You're going to wear these in the summer. I think they got to be red, white, and blue. But,
yeah,
I mean, it is what it is, I guess, if this is it. I guess we'll find out. Maybe this was a purposeful leak to get feedback, and they'll adjust properly. I stuff like that has happened before.
It's definitely not the worst one that they dropped. as far as like City Connect uniforms throughout the league. It definitely wasn't the worst one, so I'm happy about that. But it's not very good.
No. So that's gonna do it for this one. Unless like there is a signing, I think the next time we come back is when MLB Pipeline releases the Phillies top 30 prospects. We're just gonna, share the screen, go through the 30, see who, dropped, who went up, who maybe should be there, who shouldn't be. Although I'm not too keen on people that should be there in most cases, but we're going to take a look at that. The Phillies did have 4 prospects on the top 100, which is a good sign. I think they were all in the top 75, or was someone like 79?
Crawford is like 78, I think.
Okay, so almost top 80, top 80. From the top 80, which is really good. So we'll come back and talk about that because that should be released sometime in the next week to 10 days. So that'll be the next time you hear from us. So when that comes out, you'll see us then.